Hello, peeps. Well, welcome back in. And as you notice, we're in a different setting today. We're trying something new. Just for today, we have some fun things coming up with a brand new, like little podcast room that we're working on. But today we decided to do it from Dominique's comfy couch. And we just wanted to test these different things out. We have different settings going on and all that. So bear with us, but it's just always a fun time around here. I wanted to chat with you guys today, mostly because this subject comes up from time to time. I know we're part of the UnMothered group, but what happens when it's a man that is unmothered, a boy that grows up unmothered? Where do we chime in on that traumatic wound for them? I think it's a subject I wanted to talk about because, of course, I saw a Netflix documentary, which I'm going to be talking about in a minute, and it just started my wheels spinning because occasionally I do get some emails or men commenting on my posts that they don't have anyone to go to when they realize and recognize that they've been unmothered. They're like, what about us? We're men that have grown up unmothered. What do we do? I'm throwing it out there for the world. Men or women, if you know a man that has gone through this, that writes, that has an inkling to help, I think this would be a really good subject for kind of a branding for men to get into, is to help other men walk through this season of unmothered. And I would love to see a book written by a man's perspective. I'm going to talk a little bit about my brother's perspective on that today too. It's very isolating and very embarrassing for them, and they don't know what to do with those feelings. And so, like I said, I watched this documentary called Con Mom, and it's on Netflix. And it just never fails to surprise me that every time I'm scrolling through different movies or documentaries, it just clicks in things for me of like, this is a great subject to talk about. And I think that, the reason this caught my eye so much is because this particular documentary was about a man that was a Michelin, or is, not was, he is a Michelin star dessert chef based out of London. And he had a beautiful life. He had a great relationship with another chef, and they were starting to form a family. She found herself pregnant. They were living together. They were both in the cooking business. They loved what they did. And she had mentioned that he had talked to her very briefly about his upbringing. And what had happened was he had never known his mother. He had ended up in the foster system until he was about 2 years old. So he's kind of regrouping this story, but you can see that he's not really putting a lot of emphasis on how important this was in forming who he was. And he says that his father ended up finding him at 2 years old and bringing him back to his now new life. But he mentioned briefly his father was pretty aggressive, I will say, and was an angry man. I think that's how he described him. So there was a lot of little nuances in his story, but he was doing great. And you could also tell there was some pain there, a lot of pain there, of never knowing who his mom was. So fast forward, his girlfriend is pregnant. They're starting this family. They're so excited. And it's 2020 and the whole world shuts down and everybody's on their computers. Everyone's at home. He said they were getting along great at home. And all of a sudden he gets this email from this woman who's saying that she is his mother. Now imagine we go back to the little person, the little child in ourselves, of like, all he wanted was his mom's love. That's all he ever wanted in his life. And now suddenly this woman comes into his life and she tells him that, she loves him so much. She wants to meet him. Oh, and by the way, she only has about 6 months to live. She's dying of cancer and just really wants to meet him. And he gets scooped up into this whole swirl of this woman's life and completely pulls aside all the importance of the family that he has. And this woman ends up being a total con artist. She takes him for all of his money, some of his friends' money, other people's money that she meets while she's at this in Switzerland and in London, everywhere she goes. She's a total con artist. And his partner is trying to tell him like something's not right. Like this woman is lying to you. You don't even know her, and it's like this whole mental thing, this game of when you want something so bad, when you want a mom's love so bad and you want to be accepted and you've been abandoned and you've been rejected, and all of a sudden this person comes back into your life, you throw all reason out the window. He never questioned anything that she asked of him. She pretended to get sick while his partner was going in the hospital to deliver their baby. He had to move her back. Well, he wanted to, and she kind of played him on this. He moved her back into the house as soon as his partner was coming home with a newborn baby, and the mom kept pushing him, over to her side. So he was ignoring his newborn child and his partner. All these things were happening, and he never sat back and separated. Who is this person? One, I've never even questioned. One, is she actually my biological mom? They did end up doing a test, and yes, she was, unfortunately. Two, somebody's coming back into your life after 40 years, and you don't do a background check to even know like who this person was. And by the way, where have you been my whole life? Like that was never discussed. And then three, she's just asking him for money because, she loves him so much, and he's supposed to honor and love your parents, which is so biblical, right? But there was no trust built up in the beginning to even have the honoring of this parent that was not in your life and never explained why they weren't in your life and left you to be in foster care. None of that was asked. And this is what trauma does to people's brains, is like what you want. It's like that endorphin fix, right? What you want so badly is this love and connection with this person that all reasoning goes out the window. And this is what happened to this man. And what made me so sad is that as a man, they don't have the verbiage to say like, I'm weak, I'm scared, I don't feel whole as a person because I don't have this mommy. Because you want to be a man, right? You want to buck up and you want to get past that. And you just want, well, that was in the past. I don't need to think about it. But here it all comes roaring back to the front and center when his mommy shows up. He was cuddling with her. I mean, she soaked up every single inch of him that she knew would be so vulnerable. And she used all those parts to abuse his whole life. And the saddest part for me is that he ended up being the same kind of parent to his child at the end of this show as what he didn't want as a child. So his relationship with his girlfriend, she ended up moving back to New Zealand to be close to her family because this man was chasing his mommy all over. She kept promising him. She said she was the illegitimate daughter of the king of Brunei. And so she had all these things set up telling him like, I'm leaving you this huge inheritance. He met lawyers. He met bankers after hours in Switzerland at these huge banks. I mean, she had all the props set up. And so he followed the trail of these lies. But in the meantime, she's taking money from him and everybody else to pay Peter to the Piper and all these different things where it was this crossword puzzle of money exchange where he actually thought like she's very, very wealthy. And she kept saying, I'm going to leave you so much money. You're not going to know. You're never going to have to worry about your family. You're not going to know what to do with all of it. But what ended up happening is it pulled him away from his family. He wasn't near his son for the first few months of his life. And then his girlfriend ended up moving back to New Zealand to have her family help her because she was all by herself in London while he's off chasing this dream that's never going to happen in Switzerland. And so the very thing that he didn't want in his own life, he ended up being with his child. Generational dysfunction is now he doesn't visit his child and he says, well, my child's in a happy place with his partner. And so I'm just going to let him live there with her family and be happy. But my thing is you just ruined him too, because now he's growing up saying, why did my dad leave me? Where is my father? Why doesn't my father love me? And that's the part he's not realizing, is at the end of this story, he still had his job, he still had his other chef friends, but all of his dysfunctions and everything were still front and center. They were still a part of his life, and he was continuing this trauma trail because he didn't know how to fix that, and he still wasn't recognizing fully what had happened. He did separate from the mom. He finally figured out she was a con artist, but it destroyed his life. It destroyed his future. And I look at that and I say, you've also destroyed this child's life, in this sense, if you don't pick up and make it better for him, he's going to grow up saying, my dad doesn't love me now. He's going to have daddy issues. So you can see where generational dysfunction will happen when you don't dig through the things that have really damaged you as a child, to really pull those out, recognize those parts, figure out how to get healthy through those things. And as a man, I think that that's doubly hard for them. And so that's why I think this episode is really important, is to know if you have men in your life that are afraid to talk about their past, I would encourage them to start really small, but like really start digging through some things that have been very hurtful to them, so they can bring that forth to the surface, so that then that can release from their body and release from their minds, and start to switch that mindset of like, this guy was craving this so bad, but all along he still had a really good life. And so he didn't need to crave that part to the point where he wasn't going to trust anything else. Once he filled that part, it was like that's all he could focus on, instead of getting healthier and saying, I'm really glad you're back in my life, but you know what? Let's take a beat back. Let's slow it down and make sure this is a relationship I actually want with you, because maybe you're not a good person, which turned out to be true. She wasn't. And by that time, it was too late when he figured out and had to pull the curtain back and say, hold on, I trusted you with everything right off the bat. I never questioned it. When you're in a healthy place, you're going to question those things. And also, you're going to pay attention to the things that are already good in your life. You're not going to push those aside. So don't let unresolved childhood trauma get in the way of your future and destroy the people that you love. I would say get help with a professional if this is something, if this is you or someone you know that you're like, yeah, this sounds like my boyfriend, my husband. I've been saying there's something there, there's something stuck. Encourage them to talk to a therapist or a professional person, or even someone right off the bat that they really, really trust, that they know is going to be gentle with their heart. They don't need somebody telling them, this is what you need to do, and this is how you're going to do it, and you should hate that person, and you should do this. That's not helpful. What you need is somebody to be curious about their story, to say, hey, this sounds like a really heavy thing for you. Can you tell me more about it? And let them slowly bring everything to the surface of what actually happened. Because his partner even said he never explained to me the depth of what he went through. Being in foster care is a huge, huge thing. Being abandoned by your parents is a huge, huge thing. You cannot just say that flippantly and go on with your life. You need to dig through those things, get healed for those things, and realize that those things will affect you, especially when you start having your own children. Those feelings will rise back up. And if you don't know what to do with those feelings, they can lead to really dangerous places of your own self-abuse, of things that you may react to that you don't even know why that's happening. So watching this show made me realize that men that are unmothered are just as important as us being unmothered, and if not even maybe more so, because we look at men as the pillars of our family. And so You want to make sure that your men are at the healthiest place that they can be before they have children, so that they have the ability and the words to say, hey, this is really triggering me right now, or this really reminds me of something that happened. Let me talk about it. Also, saying with that, you can be their safe place. If you have a partner that is in this situation with their parents, or being unparented, or being in an abusive relationship as a child, you can also be the safe place to say, tell me more. Let me help you. And then together you can find professional help together. You can go together to a therapist. You can just be that safe person for them, to let them know this is not a shame thing. This is not an embarrassing thing. This is something that can actually make you the best person you can be when you learn how to be healthier through it and stronger through it at the end of the day. I will also say personally, I have seen this with my late brother. There was recently, I remembered he had written a letter to my mom, and in it, it talked about some of the painful things that he had gone through. He was in therapy at this time. I will say too, with certain situations, in my brother's case, I know there was some mental illness going on, so he was in a lot of therapy, lots of different programs, but there was some deeper issues. So even though he tried to write these things out and clear the air through that, it was really difficult for him to get to a place of peace. And so I think that is really important. But I remember reading this letter and seeing in the letter form of him saying how embarrassed he was by the situations of the things that my mom put him through abusively. There was even a part where he said neighbors had come to our apartment one time when my mom was out and had asked him if they should call the police and come and help us. And he said no, because he was more afraid of what would happen if my mom went to jail and then got out and got us back, that we would be beaten worse if she found out that he was the one that had ratted her out. And so that kind of abusive behavior carried him through his whole life. And there was just this piece missing in him. He couldn't find the words to really express that he was in so much pain from the childhood trauma he had gone through, that it ruined his relationship with his kids and his wife. And there was many other things that had happened in between that too. And I think, again, I think my brother had a lot of mental issues that he wasn't getting help for. And so it is a real layered thing. It's really hard to understand like what men actually go through or have gone through, because they don't have the words the way women do. We have girlfriends, so we kind of are talking creatures even on this. Like I can do a podcast and think of a million things to say, and just kind of purge that out, and it works through my own body too, where I'm like, oh yeah, that episode reminded me of this, and I can find those comforting places. But I think it's harder for men to find those places. So there's a certain posture that we have to have with men. It needs to go slower, and it needs to be extremely safe, and also letting them know that there isn't shame in that. So just a few things to let you know that it is a little bit of a different bent with men than women, but the harm is the same, the pain is the same, the shame is the same. And so if we can get to those places and know that we can grieve those places well, we can take our time and really look at those. Don't push them aside. Don't try to tough it out. Don't say it doesn't matter. It all matters, and it matters because it matters for your future. So I hope this episode helped you or helped someone that you loved. And until next time, we will see you later, peeps. Bye.